Okay, March 31st, 2019, and we have a John Deere Z-Track. And tail end of last year, we developed a pretty nasty oil leak down here. So through the course of the winter, with it stowed away in the garage, pretty confident it wasn't a valve cover. That is mighty clean right there. So my concerns was that it was a head gasket, which would be a pretty good project, but after further evaluation, I was oh so glad to see that 25 horsepower Kawasaki V-twin engines, this is where the oil filter threads on. There's an O-ring back here that was leaking. Let me see if I can get this off one-handed. Once you get this oil cooler off, there's an O-ring right here, and this was our problem right here. This O-ring started to leak right at the top. When it was running, it just oozed out ever so slow and resulted in a constant drip. So we're gonna get this all cleaned up. I got a new O-ring, and I also ordered a new, I didn't know if I would have to tear this up to get this off, which is worst case scenario. And the original equipment looks better than the aftermarket. So this one that came original with the motor, that thing's still shiny and whatnot, versus this thing that's all dull and looks like it's been on the shelf for 10 years. But I think we're going to reshelf this and stick with the old one. Shiny, slicker probably means better oil flow. And another thing I noticed is that this oil cooler, it isn't just a blow through. It circulates throughout this little number here to really assist in cooling that oil. So that was kind of an interesting factor on this piece I was unaware of. It goes in or out this hole, but it also circulates within this unit, because I had to tip this thing all which ways but loose to get all the oil out of it. So we will get all this gunk and nastiness cleaned up. And another problem that these Kawasaki's have is, where'd I put it? Let me get the oil off my hands here. This plate hugs real tight to this head, which I'll show you later. And grass gets caught up in there. I'll show you some stills that I took of that grass. And what happens is that grass gets caught up in here because, I mean, there isn't but a 1/16, maybe a 1/4 inch between this plate and this cylinder head. And grass gets all caught up in there and the head won't cool. And we had the problem a few years ago when we blew this head. Had to pay untold amount of money to have this side rebuilt. And so ever since then, I've always checked to make sure that the grass was cleaned out. I'd always look down in there, and it always looked clear. But when I took this off, the whole back side of this was packed with grass. I'll show you the stills I took of that. And boy, that is a problem waiting to happen when you got a cylinder head cooling quicker on one side than it is the other. So we'll get this cleaned up and go from here. All right. It's not completely spit shine, but at least we got the cooling fins cleaned out. We got the mating surface for the O-rings, and we got the majority of it. Later, after it's all put together, I'll get some degreaser and spray on there to get all this icky stuff and back in there and all that nastiness. But anyway, I wanted to mention these parts I got at partstree.com. No, they didn't give them to me, and I'm not advocating the use of them. But the O-ring, which I sure to heck fire hope is the right one, I haven't tried it yet, is this right here. Let's see here. This is the O-ring that goes on the back side of the oil cooler. and that had a whopping cost of $1.61. That is an affordable fix. I did get a Kawasaki oil filter that come in at $11.27. Affordable. $11.27, and there's that part number there. Let's see, there you can see it. And then we've got this new stud, which I'm not going to use. Actually, that's the good one there, the used one. I got this spare stud, you know, in anticipation of problems. And that cost $8.32, and that takes a 1-inch socket. It may take a metric. I didn't have a socket that big, that deep well. I had to go to my neighbor's. Got a 1-inch, and it worked just fine. But as you can see on the one I took out, I didn't burger up the edge. Well, there's a little one right there. See that? Let me see. Oh, there it is. Yep, right there. So I think it's probably a metric, but yeah. Well, we'll get the new O-ring on this. And okay, this old O-ring was roached out. See how flat it is. There ain't much rubber to it. You can see where I damaged it good trying to get it out. Took me a good bit of time to get it out. I sure don't want to damage that that cooling fin, the mating surfaces. So when you look at the condition of that O-ring, I think I'm going to replace that O-ring every time I change the oil. Only thing you got to do once you get this oil filter off is take a 1-inch, pop that off, replace the O-ring, which, as we established earlier, is $1.60 something, and be well worth the hassle. So we'll get that oil filter on there and go from there. Okay, oil filter's back on. Here's the cylinder head without the heat shield. I'm going to put the heat shield on and show you how tight that is to the head. So this is without the heat shield. Alright, and here's with the heat shield on. As you can see, once that heat shield is on, you really can't see. See, what I've been doing is looking in here to see if there's any grass buildup, and you cannot see clear back in here. All the way back in here is where that grass is collecting. You can't see it. So I would suggest what I'm going to do when I change the oil, I'm going to change filter, O-ring, pull the heat shield, which is it takes two 12mm bolts here, one 10mm wrench, like, because the socket doesn't fit up there, 10mm wrench here, and a 10mm socket right there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, oh, and this one bolt right here, there's two of them here, just this one needs to come out, and that is a I believe that's a 10 also. But you take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pop the spark plug wire, and this heat shield comes right off. Clean it out, pop it back on. Bob's your uncle. So I need to remember to screw that back in before I put oil in it and see if we got any leaks. Well, I don't know if you can hear me. I don't see any oil leaks yet, but one thing I do not like is right at the tip of my finger, that oil cooler flange is up against that sensor module. I don't like that at all. Only way to move it back is to drain the oil. So I may be changing oil in this sooner than anticipated at $8 a quart. No leaks yet. But I'm not going to put the shroud back on yet. I need to get this this other plate over here off. Make sure there's no grass back there before the mowing season starts. Alrighty, well I guess that's it. That's about it. No leaks. I'm a happy camper. I put some cardboard down there to tell for sure, but we'll check it later.